Howdy folks, Tex Grebner here with Tex Grebner Outdoors. New videos every week, motivational Mondays, weird Wednesdays, and of course, your Tex Grebner Outdoors Saturday morning cartoon awesomeness. So if you don't want to miss out on any of it, you better make sure to click subscribe, check that notification box, and leave me a comment so that I know that you were here. I truly appreciate all of you that actually watch, because if you didn't watch, I wouldn't bother making the videos. So, I want to get this out of the way early as well. Whitetail season is coming up here in Illinois pretty shortly, and so I may be cutting my uploads down to just your Saturday morning cartoon awesomeness of my week thus far as the deer season goes on, because I might not have time to actually put out Weird Wednesday or Motivational Monday, depending on how my hunting schedule and working on the farm goes with the harvest and such. But because I haven't got a clue what I'm gonna make this video on to get this episode out, not because I don't have any content to produce, just because you never really know what's gonna stick when you throw it to the wall, I'm kind of tying up some loose ends and answering some viewer questions in this. But don't worry, I'll come up with an episode for you here, because it is dangerous to release too much of my awesomeness all at once. But right now, this is, as it stands right now, my fishing rod collection. Because I have spent an embarrassing amount of money on fishing rods over the years. And this doesn't even count all the rods that I had when I was younger, or rods that I have given away to people so that I could take them fishing. The fact is, I have spent an embarrassing amount of money on fishing rods that hardly ever get used, because sadly, with all the train to hunt that I do over the summer months, I really don't have a lot of time for fishing, and sometimes the fishing ain't good, and I've noticed that my fishing videos tend not to do very well because nobody watches them, so I tend to focus my content and my energy in other areas. But if next summer you guys want to see some more fishing videos and you're actually going to watch them, make sure to leave me a comment saying more fishing videos, and I will try and accommodate that. But based off of what I'm seeing in my analytics, nobody's really watching my fishing videos when I do put them up, so I really just haven't made all that many fishing videos this calendar year. This is my illustrious fishing rod collection. Now, there are a few cheapos in here, and there are some really embarrassingly expensive rods and reels in here. So I figure we'll start on the cheapo end of things. So this right here is a simple Zebco spinning reel. I think I paid $6 for it at a gas station. And it's just a simple, light bass rod. Not an ultralight rod, but I do like fishing on ultralight tackle, but I don't have any right now. But yeah, this is just a $6 gas station Zebco reel and rod combination. And honestly, most of what I own is Shakespeare. But I do have a few Daiwa reels in here, so I'm just going to dump that off the side of the table instead of trying to balance it. Now this here is my Shakespeare Mantis. It's a 6-foot rod reel combination, medium action. I run 6-pound braid on it, which is just fine for a real sensitive bass fight. And it doesn't take all the fun out of catching bluegills. I don't do a lot of crappie fishing. But it's just a real nice rod and reel for about 15 bucks at Walmart. Nothing at all fancy in that one. But I do have the 6-pound braided line. I'm a big fan of braided line, just because I grew up on monofilament line and I hated it. Now this one's a 6-foot Shakespeare Firebird. This one's got 8-pound braid on it. And it's a 6-foot medium action Shakespeare rod. Again, it's a $15 Walmart fishing rod and reel combo. just because. So this rod and reel combination here and this rod and reel combination here are Zebco Champion Series medium action 6-foot 6-inch rods. These are pretty alright for just about anything you really want to do with them freshwater wise. I think I paid $30 a piece for them. They're very ergonomic. You can fish with them all day without hating life. So generally these are pretty alright rods. They're a little bit more expensive than my other Shakespeare rod and reel combinations, but I've fished catfish with them in the river just fine, using 15-pound braid on them. And they're a pretty good spinning rod and reel combination, to be honest with you. But they're really nothing fancy. They're just a $25, $30 Zebco Champion reel. Now this here, as I come out past my tripod, is one of my older rods. We're getting a little bit heavier here because this is another spinning reel of mine. This is a Daiwa Jupiter X that I've had for a long time. It's got a trigger bail on it, front drag, and this is on an old school Rhino glow tip 7-foot rod. Good rod and reel combination. I'm running 20-pound braid on it right now. I either use Fireline or spider wire. Again, I do not like monofilament. This rod and this rod are both 8-foot Missouri rods. These are medium heavies, and I've got Daiwa 40 to 50 reels on them, and I've got 50-pound spider wire in the spool here. They're a good rod, they're a good reel. They aren't very sensitive because they're a medium heavy, so if you get a small catfish on the line, you're just going to horse him right to the bank like nobody's business. So it's more of a no frills, no screwing around type mentality with these two rods here. But they work. I just haven't actually ever got anything that was big enough to give me a good solid fight on this setup. Now we're fixing to get into my more expensive gear. I honestly don't actually remember what I paid for the Daiwa and the Missouri River rod setup, to be honest with you. Now I've got a Martin fly rod here. I want to get this out of the way before I forget about it, seeing as we're moving in progression from my lightest to my heaviest rods. But this is a Martin Classic 8-foot fly rod. I got it in my head that I was going to start fly fishing, and I'm no damn good at fly fishing. So I own a fly rod, but because I don't actually do any wading, when you've got, 4 or 5 foot tall grass in a cattle pasture and you're trying to fly fish, all you do is just break your tippets when you rip off line when you're trying to actually cast. So I do happen to own a fly rod. It's a 3-pin rod, and I imagine that it would be pretty awesome. The problem is I don't really have a place to fly fish at, so I don't get any use out of it. But I do own a fly rod, so go me. Now we're getting into the more expensive stuff, because I'm pretty sure that this fly rod only cost me about 40 bucks. Rod and reel, line, and tippets. So now we're getting into some more expensive fishing tackle for sure, because this is a Shimano medium heavy 9.5-foot fast action rod. So is this one, and riding on it I've got a Shakespeare Tidewater bait caster here. It's got a clicker on it because we all love hearing that clicking sound if we watched Jaws as a kid. Oh shit, I got a bite. Now what's funny is, even though this is a medium heavy trolling rod, I actually have 500 yards on each of these rods of 10-pound test Berkley Fireline. because years ago when I bought these, I had it in my head that I was going to be a line class style fisherman. And if you can land a 50-pound catfish on 10-pound test line, seems pretty awesome. But never have I ever had a 50-pound catfish bite my line. So naturally, I really get no use out of them because they are a little bit too heavy to be functional for just regular pond or bank fishing on the river unless you've got some monsters hanging around. But I imagine that they would be worth the money just for that sound alone. I think by the time that I was done, that I ended up paying $300 for the pair of them and to get the line set up on them. But yeah, I got 500 yards of 10-pound test fire line on here on these Shakespeare Tidewater reels when they're really technically like a 30-pound line. You probably noticed that basically I don't bass fish with a bait caster reel. Now when I was younger, I had it in my head that I needed bait casters so that I could be like those guys on TV. Well, I never really had anybody show me how to properly use a bait caster reel, and I was using Quantum Series Walmart rods and reels. And so, sad fact is, it was just cast and tug, cast and tug. So I finally got sick of it and just gave them away. Basically, all that I bass fish with is spinning tackle, and all my bait casters are heavy trolling rods and reels or bank rods and reels. That way I throw it out once with 2 ounces of lead on it. I don't have to screw with it. And as I said, most of my bait caster rods and reels are just simply too heavy for the kind of fishing that I normally do. But I do at least have these heavy rods and reels in case I come upon an opportunity to do some really heavy fishing. But as a general statement, when fishing rods come into play, your medium action Walmart Shakespeare rods are going to be just dandy for about everything that a casual angler is going to be doing. They're not complicated, they're easy to set up, they're easy to reline, they'll give you a good fight even with small fish, and they're pretty durable unless you shut the tip of your rod in a car door. I know for sure that a couple of us have done that before. But at least if you do shut the tip of your rod in a car door, you're only out 20 bucks at the worst. Thus far, that is what my fishing rod collection consists of. There ain't a whole lot left for me to do as far as getting ready for archery season, because right now I've got my spots all set up. I've put in the time and scouting to try and figure out to the best of my ability where them deer are going to be traveling. And there's only so many ways around the property and so many trails, and frankly, whitetail hunting on private land tends to be, at least in my case, a high-stakes game of whack-a-mole. Being at the right place, in the right time. And frankly, when I first started, nobody told me, hey, you don't just show up, go out, and get a deer. It's going to take time, and it's going to take work. Maybe I was naive, but frankly, I'm just being honest with you. When I first started, I didn't have a clue how hunting worked in reality. Even if you go with an outfitter, somebody had to put in the work. Somebody had to figure out where those deer were going to want to be and how to get to where you need to be. Even if you're hunting with an outfitter, somebody put in the work. And I'm not trying to take any shots at guys that hunt with an outfitter for whitetail, but the fact is, The outfitter definitely put in the work, and I have had to put in literally years of scouting deer, watching them from my tree stands move around this particular property that I've been able to hunt the past couple of years, to try and figure out how to put myself in the right position. It's very much like how out west they will scout elk and glass them and put them to bed and be there when they come out. But it's been a long road to get to this season of accumulating the knowledge and honing my skills. It's definitely a journey. Speaking of honing my skills, you would think that for as fast as I can wear out a 3D target, that I'd be a much better shot than what I think I am. Now, I can normally get a full year out of a Reinhardt broadhead buck as long as I replace the inserts. I can wear out an insert for a Reinhardt broadhead buck shooting field points in about 3 months. Now, I've got some chunks in here from an old Field Logic shooter buck, and I've got a couple inserts in here that I've worn out for the Reinhardt broadhead buck. But this one's pretty much finished, because when you're shooting a recurve or a longbow and you go out to longer ranges and you start undershooting and then you correct and you start overshooting, well, then you basically shoot the target apart. But the Reinhardt broadhead buck is pretty durable. It at least will last me a year if I don't shoot too bad. Now, I know that this is not what it's intended for, but right now I'm getting some use out of my Montana decoy, and I've got a black hole block target behind it. So first of all, this is going to be helpful in the sense of it doesn't actually have scoring rings, it just has anatomical markings on it, and it looks like a deer. Now, obviously they do have the solo targets, but I already had a Montana decoy. I don't have the money to replace my broadhead buck right now, so I'm just planning on getting by with what I got. And so while this is not what the Montana decoy is designed for, I feel that it's going to hold up pretty alright as long as I don't start ripping it up with broadheads. But I feel that shooting at 3D targets or even a silhouette target is much more beneficial for a traditional bow hunter than shooting at a bag target or a block target. Especially because you want to be able to have spatial arrangement in your sight picture for where your arrow tip might need to be at longer ranges in order to get your arrow to go where you want it to be. But also for being able to pick a spot without actually having a dot or a reference point or a scoring ring. What a 3D or a silhouette target that's life-size is also going to do for you if you're filming is actually be able to help you figure out your framing of your shots and how close you actually need to be in order for that animal to actually show up on film. Well, it's fixing to get pretty wild here pretty darn soon. So I hope you guys enjoyed watching this episode of Tex Grebner Outdoors, Saturday morning cartoon awesomeness. Opening day is days away at this point. As always, God bless all my sportsmen of America. Join the NRA to protect our rights. Please check out my friends over at SOETacticalGear.com. Thank you very much to those of you involved in law enforcement and those of you serving in the military. Thanks for watching Tex Grebner Outdoors.